The cyborg graphene 6G game over is now being revealed nowhere else. So if you want to run away, go ahead and run away. But if you want to sit down and understand what's at large happening, first you need to listen to this DARPA director or neuroscientist, and then we're going to tell you how they're saying they want to put these cyborg cells in our environment, which basically phase one has been done with the graphene, and we're going to connect the dots here so that you can see further where it's going. And we found ways that, yes, it is ways to remove this stuff, and we want to talk about even further ways on that. But check this out.
DARPA neurotechnologist Justin Sanchez.
Interfaces to the brain, we are able to discover and learn about the structural, electrical, and chemical components of neural activity that emerges millisecond to millisecond and throughout all of a lifetime. DARPA-sponsored research is enabling us to measure the activity of many different brain signals that span many different systems of the brain. And we do this to establish new theories for how neural activity gives rise to specific behaviors.
How it can give certain rise to different behaviors because they want behavioral control. So I looked deeper into the HYDRAS for you. And guess what I found? I found this connection, not just with the HYDRAS, but how 6G needs graphene to communicate, because obviously these systems are interlinked together, but not just that it needs 6G to communicate, it also needs, in a different form of way, these different hydras and everything else, because they were talking about these systems inside of the hydra, and they're using magnetic fields to modulate them as well. So this is going to go into the whole agenda here, that they're not just coming out telling us in 2023 they want to use us as a human body receiver, which the graphene has already essentially done that. And like I said, the survivors of the future will be the ones who take more of this out of their body, and they'll have spiritual control as well, because they said the graphene interacted with demons and stuff like that. And I said it in my last video. Now, the more interesting thing is that everything is being bioengineered. And what people haven't been looking into is that the hydras themselves are at large being bioengineered. As you look on the screen here, what are you seeing? You're seeing that some of them look completely different.
Easy storage.
And they've even admitted that they've bioengineered some of them. So they got genetic ones out there, and they've implanted sensors inside of them. These sensors allow them to be stimulated, as you're going to see on the screen, whenever they hit them with certain types of light. And they're also creating different communication systems through these hydras. So you would ask the question, why would they need a communication system to go through these creatures that supposedly are immortal, and why are they embedding sensors inside these creatures, just as well as the graphene? So guess what else they did? You understand parasites are a huge part of controlling the human mind or an animal mind. Well, they actually sliced up a hydra and put it inside of one of the worms. In 2021, researchers rewired the worm brain using hydra parts. So they basically made a worm hydra hybrid. A worm hydra hybrid. A freaking worm hydra hybrid. So again, going into this, we're going to show you exactly what happens with the worm hydra hybrid. It makes them be able to communicate like a cell phone inside of whatever it's in. Whether that's the water, whether that's a person, whatever it's in. And we're about to read some of this to you about what the researchers did. And it goes into say, for two people to communicate in a loud room, they need to be standing side by side. The same is often true for neurons in the brain, but the same way a cell phone allows two people to communicate clearly across the room, New research at Marine Biology Laboratory opened a new channel of communication in the worm brain. For the first time, researchers created what they call here genetic lines of mutant C. elegans that express neuropeptides. It goes on to say, from the Hydra brain, creating an artificial synapse that rewire a behavioral circuit in the worm, because none of the other synapses in the brain besides those fitted with the Hydra could hear the command. It was like giving them a cell phone so they could communicate. So I'm going to read you further into this, but here's the Hydra when it's opening up his mouth and, basically is getting ready to eat. They were able to give it communications to tell it that the behavior told them they were full and needed to stop searching for food. And then another thing they were saying, it was like, they said, this is so exciting. We've opened up a whole new area we've never explored. And like, basically they just mad at this point, and they're using these things for communication systems. So if a Hydra was somewhere or in something or in whatever it's in, it could send a message to another Hydra. And essentially, they are externally sending messages between that, along with the 6G, along with the graphene and everything else, along with embedded implants inside of the graphene. So it becomes this linkage that you have an intelligent system inside of a system they could send signals from, not just normal signals. Like, you could have these things weaponized as your army, and like some covert, basically intelligence getters. So moving into it, again, like I said, how parasites and bacteria could change the way you think and feel. Mind control is very real and prevalent threat to humans. We already know it's being used by many organisms throughout the animals, and obviously not just animals, but us. So we talked about graphene in game, and this is called Game Over, because we're going to get deeper into them talking about now, like, they want to put these freaking cells in the environment that are cyborg cells. So we're about to talk about that, but before we get to that, we clearly want to go into this video where it shows how, remember I told you in the graphene solar event video, remember I told you how the sun activates certain graphene because it harnesses energy, just like when it's inside of us and you emit radiation and all this other stuff. I'm gonna let you check this video out here where you get to see how graphene moves when it's hit by certain light, and specifically sunlight. Check it out. So let's say somebody's infested and they're not flushing their body, and I specifically found something to get rid of what we're dealing with, the graphene oxide, and something that I didn't mention to everybody that's highly freaking important. If you can, give this a thumbs up, share it far and wide, get it anywhere you can, because the narrative is in YouTube. They push what they want to push, but it's up to us to push what we believe that need to be pushed. So let's say somebody's infested and that person significantly is not spiritually clean, is not physically clean, and they're just completely being controlled by frequency fields, magnetic control. And then you drop these cyborg cells in the environment, which specifically they state right here. This just came out too. So cyborg cells could be tools for health and environment, January 18, 2023. They could be tools. And they specifically state exactly what they want to do. So again, remember, phase 1 was the graphene, a part of the cyborg agenda. So this is phase 2 where they get in here and they tell you, here's what they say. The cyborg cells are programmable. And it says they have these essential cellular activities in non-native ability.
When we think about checking accounts and savings accounts,
Tan said the cyborg cells were more resistant to stressors that would kill normal cells, such as exposure to hydrogen peroxide and antibiotics or high pH, the researchers found. So saying that high pH will not kill these cyborg cells. And Tan and the UC Davis team came up with the approach. They infused living bacteria cells with the basic units of artificial polymer. Once inside the cell, polymer was cross-linked into hydrogel matrix by exposure to ultraviolet light. And remember, polymer is pretty much in basically the geoengineering. You can look at it right here, a structural polymer, which is obviously stuff that's being created inside of a laboratory. So reading you further what they're saying about this stuff, the group is carrying out further research on how to create and control cyborg cells and on the effects of different matrix materials, because you're in that matrix, you know, they always say that. Again, I get it, the dish thing is called the matrix, but it's symbolic as well. They also hope to explore their use in a wide range of applications from meeting environmental challenges, diagnosing and treating disease. So they're talking about dropping cyborg cells into our environment. And like, oh, it's just cool though. Like where are these people at? Like, where are they hiding behind? Are we going to sit here and watch it? Is it just going to be the action taken against society? Are we just so domesticated to it's just like, oh, drop some cyborg cells on me, I don't care anymore? Because it's just ridiculous how far it's gotten right now. I mean, if at this point you don't see what's going on and understand how important it is and critically to be aware that if you don't be aware, you're just being impermeated by this techno-dystopic system. So the 6G, the cyborg cells, the graphene, the HYDRAS spliced with worms, all this is in one detailed, elaborate plan. So moving into it though, what kills graphene oxide? Researching these potential environmental toxicity effects, scientists have found that I think it's kaolin, a cheap and abundant clay, can act as a powerful antidote to remediate the toxic effects of graphene oxide. They used it and they defeated the graphene oxide in the oil spill before. Apparently it's been in oil spills and everything. It's in oil, it's in smoke, it's in all that. Kind of look like this. Another thing is that kaolin has been used internally throughout history to help with digestive system because the clay doesn't break down and it isn't absorbed into the body. It's very useful in issues like ulcer sores, swelling, because it coats the entirety of the digestive tract. So another thing is like you have to think about the parasitic effects as well. And I'm not promoting whatever this brand is up here. I use black walnut, but obviously in conjunction with black walnut, you're supposed to use multiple things like you see on the screen because you have to kill out the population of worms, which now we know the worms are being, hybrided with HYDRAS. So who's told you anything about that besides it coming out here? And that's why the information is critical here, because we don't go looking at other research or anything else that somebody else has put out. We just go based off what we believe the next step could be. And we think critically here so that we can get information out to help others in this critical battle. So again, graphene Endgame will be at the end of this video, and it's something you need to watch very, very much. And also protect yourself from the frequencies. I'll have the link in the chat section. You can check it out. And after the video is over, also the graphene detox is well on there. So if you go down below after the video is over and you click that link or you click it in the live chat, you'll find out information to how you can shield yourself. I use the pods for RO shielding because that's the first way. Second way is you need to have clean air. You need to have some plant in the house, snake plant. I have an air purifier that keeps the air clear. And you also need to shield your blood and everything else, the blood-brain barrier. And that's what the RF pods do. And they also do the same thing to the plants. And it also does the same thing to the water. And so adding prayer with that is an important conjunction and function to getting through the society. Now this video should be blasted out, getting far and wide. And it's up to everybody here tuning in. It's about 395 of you live. If every last one of you can share it out and everybody tuning in afterwards this could get far and wide, and we could potentially wake up humanity to not just the demonic effects of graphene, but the bigger aspect of us battling back together in this situation. Thanks for tuning in. We'll have more coming throughout the week. Check